What is up, ladies and gentlemen? But most of all, you ladies out there, thanks for clicking on another episode of Break the Silence. I am your host, Cyborg, because if you don't break the silence will break you. We got an important topic today and one that I am very excited to talk about. So please watch through, and I'd love to hear some of your opinions because I think this is one of the most excited topics I've had yet on here. So please take a second to watch this video and give me some of your thoughts in the bottom here, because we're talking about something that is one of the most heavily debated topics when it comes to not really just sports, but just this generation in general in the art and participation trophy. So we're going to get into that. Please take a second to like and subscribe to the channel. We're growing super fast. We're going to keep headed in that direction. There's so much more content to talk about. Like I've said, once we hit 300 subscribers, I'm going to drop my top 50 current players in the NBA, and I'm pumped to do so. But let's get straight into it. So I don't personally watch a lot of Summer League basketball because you can sometimes fall into too much hype. I think it's important for players to play in, but personally, like as far as watching it, I don't know that you learn that much about certain guys, so I don't watch it. But I just saw that the Portland Trail Blazers just won the Summer League title, and they were given championship rings, which I thought was crazy when I first saw that. And I saw that reported that they were handing out championship rings for Summer League, in which a lot of stars aren't even playing, and you got some young guys, you got some guys that you know, just trying to work at certain aspects of their game, and they're getting Summer League trophies. But the topic that kind of made my mind think about was this whole culture of participation trophies that we have created. And there's a couple things that I have as massive pet peeves when we're talking about the participation trophy. Now, I'm going to get a little more personal here. I am one of the most competitive human beings on the planet, and you can't convince me otherwise. I hate, I don't handle losing well at all, and I never have. Growing up, I never did. So one of my biggest pet peeves was always growing up when they wouldn't keep track of scores. When you would play basketball in middle school and they wouldn't keep track of the score. And for instance, I went up to my coach and was like, "Hey, what's the score of the game?" And he was like, "We don't keep score. We're just out here having fun." So naturally, I would keep score in my head. I would, count everything. And then at the end of the game, if we won, I was going to let everybody know. I don't care if we weren't keeping score. I was keeping score. But if we lost, I didn't want a juice box and a cookie. I wanted to feel like I just lost. Because when you're looking at that, losing can be one of the greatest things in life for a person. After I played basketball and baseball growing up, and I played baseball in middle school. It was 7th or 8th grade, I can't remember. My brother and I had a championship game on the same night. It was a 3-game series. His team and I was in the older age group, but it was the same night. And both of our teams were up 1-0 in the series. And it was a best of 3. So if either of us won, we would win the championship. His team won, and my team did not. I was the pitcher on that team, and I did not have my best game. I sat down for a bit and talked to my dad after the game, and he just thought I was trying too hard. I was throwing I was trying to throw too hard and was a little more wild than I normally was. And the reason I tell that story is because that night I sat there and held my brother's championship trophy for the entire night. I laid on my bed and stared at that trophy, just imagining what it would be like to win it. And yes, I realized it was Little League baseball. But to me, I was 100% confident that I was not going to let us lose that final game. And when we went to the game that next day, the coach huddled us all up. And we were down 1 run going into the final inning. And at the time, you could only pitch half of the game in middle school. So I came in and we were down 1 run going into the 4th inning, I believe. And I was going to close the game out. And the coach gathered everyone up and said, I know Silas is not going to let us lose this game. All we need is to go out there and score 2 runs. And I pitched a perfect game in those innings I was allowed to pitch in middle school. And the reason I say that is because the value in losing and that competitive drive, I think, is one of the most important things in all of life. If anyone's ever been in a relationship or a failed relationship, you realize that once it's over and once you feel like you failed or you let yourself down or something in some way, you then have this motivation and this drive to be the best version of yourself and to find a way to improve yourself and be better going forward. And I think that's the value of losing and the value of not handing out trophies for participating. When you're looking at any of these leagues, I don't understand why you would give a trophy if you haven't accomplished anything, because that's what a trophy represents. And the reason I talk about this a lot is because the older generation above me, so above my generation, talks a lot about how my generation is super into participation trophies. And that's a big pet peeve of mine, because the only reason that we ever got them was because the older generation was giving them to us. I didn't want no freaking trophy for losing a YMCA basketball when I was 8 years old. I didn't want a trophy for that. I wanted a trophy for winning. I wanted to keep score. But when you're looking at the older generation, they implemented a lot of things and would give you snacks and would give you all these things. But when you're thinking about it from an athlete's perspective, the pain of losing, the pain of letdown, and the pain of all those things is what drives someone to the next level. When we watched Michael Jordan in that Last Dance documentary, Michael Jordan couldn't get past the Pistons. And they talked about how his drive going into that offseason was even beyond what he had ever done. So he hit the weight room hard and he said, I am not losing again. LeBron James, when he lost to the Mavericks, one of the biggest letdowns of his life, he then proceeded to make 8 finals in a row after that, because losing can sometimes be the best thing for a person. And feeling the pain of that loss is important so that you come back with a different energy and a different motivation and a different work ethic that I think is so important. So when you're talking about this NBA Summer League ring, that just drives me nuts. It drives me nuts, and I know that it's not necessarily a participation trophy. Technically, you won the Summer League. But I think the overlying thing is, why are we giving trophies for everything? Why are we giving rings? Why are we giving awards for things that don't deserve it? You, as a person, if you fail at something, great. Go in there and grind harder and prove that you can win next time. Because that joy in winning that comes after that is the greatest feeling you'll ever have. If you just go through life and you're just, everything's going fine, you never experience hardship, and then you truly can't understand the joy of winning, because it's such a cliche, but the highs don't come without the lows. And it's such a big passion of mine because, like I talked about, I feel like I'm such a competitive person, and I hate the way that we have started to teach kids and we've started to teach other people, my age. And that's when they get in the job force and they're just expected to be handed things. So in college, I always heard people say, oh, yeah, I'm going to graduate college and the average person makes $100,000 in my field. And then I had a mentor that said, the biggest problem with my generation is that they expect to come out of college and they expect that they've proven their worth. But you sometimes have to work to prove your worth over time. He said that his first job, he started at 20 grand and he now hasn't made less than 400 grand in the last 5 years. And that really stuck with me, because when you're talking about the importance of grinding and accomplishing things, that comes from struggling at the beginning, whether that's losing, whether that's struggling in your job, whether that's, having a failed relationship. All those things can lead you to being a better person and a better athlete, or any of those in any of those areas of life. And I'm so passionate about it. I appreciate you taking a second to listen. Please take a second to like and subscribe. Cyborg out.